monthly meeting for July 28, 2020. And could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I guess the first order of business is, first of all, to swear in our one new, one re-elected members of the board. And I'll leave that to our town clerk.
Well, exciting, exciting. Mrs. Minzy, would you like to come forward first and be sworn in?
Oh, sure. Come around there.
Come on around here. And I know this is a little different than what we normally do, but we've been making a practice of swearing people in.
I think it's nice.
And I think it's a very nice thing to do. So this is a bit of a custom from New Jersey that, you know, we make a big deal when we get a new police officer or something like that. So we should. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
Jan Minzy.
Solemnly swear
Solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof.
so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof.
I will, in all respects,
I will, in all respects,
observe the ordinances of the town of Waldeboro
observe the ordinances of the town of Waldeboro
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state of Maine,
of the state of Maine,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Select Board.
the duties of Select Board.
You are officially sworn in as a Select Board member.
Thank you.
So the bad thing about this is there's two Jans now, so we have to figure.
Oh, there.
If you would like to join him, you're more than welcome to.
I'll sit here.
Okay. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jan Griesenbrock,
Solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof.
so long as I continue to be a citizen thereof.
I will, in all respects,
I will, in all respects,
observe the ordinances of the town of Waldeboro
observe the ordinances of the town of Waldeboro
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state of Maine,
of the state of Maine,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Select Board.
the duties of Select Board.
You are officially sworn in. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
So that leads us to election of officers. And nominations are open for the position of Select Board Chair.
I would like to nominate Bob Butler as chair.
Thank you, you're very kind. But I'm going to respectfully decline that nomination
Okay.
and nominate instead Abden Simmons for the Select Board Chair. Is there a second?
Second? Peacha.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, I'll consider nominations closed. The time to vote. All in favor of Mr. Simmons as Select Board Chair? He's at, okay.
Myself.
I would say it's unanimous. Okay, Abden,
Well,
it's all yours.
I guess we gotta go move on to accepting nominations for the vice chair. So,
I nominate Jan Minzy.
is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion or any other nominees?
I think she'd be a fine vice chair.
Cool. Hearing none, I guess we'll close that. And all those in favor? You're gonna vote for yourself too, Jan. I had to vote for myself. Cool.
Dundee, congratulations.
Thank you. You can do it next time.
So I guess there's no public hearings tonight.
Do you want to nominate the Board of Assessors Chair, I think?
Oh, yes, we do, actually. We forgot about that.
Is that,
It's not on here.
yeah, it's not on the agenda, right?
No, we'll have to add that. Board of Assessors.
So do that in adjustments to the agenda.
Okay.
You got that there?
We thought we were so good, Tanya and I.
All right, I guess we'll move along. We all set, Max? Keep moving along, okay. Presentations from First Advisors Portfolio Review, Matt Weaver.
Hello, Matt.
Hey Matt, how are you?
Welcome.
Nice to see you all. Healthy and
Thank you, Matt.
old and new faces.
Thank you.
Hopefully I have enough here.
Thank
for
you.
everyone.
If not,
Put it on the airplane.
we can share. We can share. I can pass along.
Your airplane mode is in settings.
Or I can make copies.
Thank you, sir.
too.
See you, Bob. Hey Matt, how are you? I'm well. Thank you. Would you like a coffee?
Yes, thank you.
Can I sit right here? Is that okay?
Yep.
Perfect.
As you all know, we manage two trusts. One large trust is 1.8 million, and cemetery trust, which is about 300,000. On the top page there is our performance report, and I've highlighted the year-to-date number through June 30th. So that's not the town's fiscal year-to-date, that's actually calendar year-to-date. So that's a 6-month figure since January 1st. And despite being in the middle of a terrible pandemic and recession, the markets have bounced back quite well since March. And the number here is just under water here of negative 1.45%, which mimics about the S&P 500 where we are at this time. And the blended benchmark, which is what we use as a way of seeing if we're doing a good job for you, the town. We are beating the blended benchmark by almost 100 basis points there, and that includes fee. So we're doing quite well. The other performance report here is just like the one you see for the town trust fund. Similar numbers. There's a little less equity exposure in that one, but we're 0.37 against a negative 0.27 blended benchmark. So in both of the trusts, we're doing well against all of the benchmarks you see below there, which is cumulative number is how we get to that. And more importantly, over time, which I think, you know, the longer you look at performance, the longer time frame, the more meaningful it is. If you look over, you know, the 1-year and 3-year numbers at the top of the column here, you'll see, for instance, a number of positive 3.73 against a benchmark of 2.75, and then a 3-year number of 5% a year, just over the blended benchmark. Any questions? Yes, Bob.
I do have one. Under portfolio composition,
Yes.
you have a fair amount invested in taxable fixed income. And I'm just curious, I mean, we're a municipality, and I believe we're exempt from paying taxes.
Yes.
I guess the question is, why are we investing in securities that are taxable if we're not liable to pay the tax? Presumably, you don't pay the tax on our behalf because...
The benefit of a municipal bond, for instance, is a double taxation that you don't have to pay, the federal and state. You already are exempt. The town is exempt from paying those taxes.
So whoever's making the investments is not collecting taxes on
right.
what we make.
Right, and then it comes down to comparing a taxable fixed income investment with a municipal free, muni-free, and if there's a comparison where you have to consider if the overall return over the lifetime of that bond was better in a municipal bond, then we would consider buying it, despite the fact that you can't use that benefit of a tax-free fixed income investment. But generally, we go out and we look for CDs for municipalities, because if we stay under that $250,000 FDIC threshold, then if anything were to happen to that financial institution that we invest in, the town will be made whole, which is that's the most important thing for me. And it's why you won't see any corporate debt in the portfolio, because we don't want that default risk for the town. So I prefer to have CDs in here where I know if something were to happen to that bank, we're going to get paid because of the FDIC insurance, as long as I stay under that 250K threshold. So that's sort of our thought process there, is when we're managing municipal money, we want to make sure that we're managing it in a safe way. And even though I could get a little bit higher return on a corporate bond, it just wouldn't be prudent to do that. I prefer to keep things very safe. And CDs have offered very good returns over the years, and I can show you on the trust fund statement here on page 4, where you look at the fixed income investments. Despite the fact that we have a 6-year treasury yield right now of 0.6, I mean a 10-year treasury yield of 0.6, we have a fixed income portfolio for the trust assets. If you look at the bottom here under total fixed income, it's in bold, you'll see over to the right-hand column, the current yield is almost 3% on the town's fixed income investments. So we purchased some CDs at a very good time for the town, where we were getting 2.5%, 3% for only going out 3 to 5 years for CDs. And at the time, I wish I had bought more. You know, with the rate environment the way it is, when these CDs come due, it's going to be very difficult for me to find anything in terms of yield to replace these CDs. So that's going to be, you know, my burden, and all the, you know, portfolio managers that work with me, you know, to find any type of yield going forward until rates start to go back up. And
a lot of folks are actually putting money into corporate bonds simply because of that.
Yes, and that worries me. And it's been sort of the trend over the last year or so. And, you know, where's the next bubble? You know, is it corporate debt? And that's why we prefer, you know, to buy those CDs and have that extra layer of safety for municipalities. And, you know, I'll take 3%, you know, for this portfolio, considering where we are with rates. You know, it's the best we can do, and stay safe and stay within the main municipal investment guidelines. So,
Thank you.
yeah, and I think going forward, you know, we have to manage, you know, expectations on return, because the next 10 years, I don't think we're going to see the returns that we saw in the last 10 years. And that's a reflection of the interest rate environment. It's a reflection of 10-year bull market in equities. And, you know, we're propping up markets right now. The Fed is propping up markets with, you know, stimulus, which, you know, is helping everyone from, you know, small businesses to large. But at some point, you know, we're going to have to probably raise taxes in order to pay those debts down. So we will probably have higher capital gains taxes going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that was what we lived with in the 90s, right? We had higher capital gains taxes. The markets still went up. We still had good markets. We actually had a balanced budget by the end of the 90s, and I think that was when both parties were working together. You know, when you had Clinton and Gingrich sort of getting in a room and figuring things out. Unfortunately, we don't see that much anymore, you know, that cooperation. But I think you're going to see higher taxes and probably lower returns going forward, you know, because of those factors I mentioned.
Thank you.
Does anyone else get any questions?
There's a question from the audience.
Yep.
Ruben Mar asks, how are those CDs doing versus inflation the past year?
Sure. So inflation now, I guess you can peg it at, you know, lower than the historical average of, you know, 3% is what we've always used. But, you know, because of recession, I think you can say it's closer to 2%. And that's a good question because, even when rates were slightly higher, a year ago or 2 years ago when we were buying these CDs, that's what we were trying to do, is find at least something that would give you a return, over that inflation number. Because that inflation is eating into the buying power of these funds every year. And it's why it's so important for trusts like this to have a growth and a fixed income component in order to stay ahead of inflation. Because if you were too conservative and you just had, bonds in here, you'd just be keeping up with the buying power. And, over time, the money in these trusts would not go as far in terms of paying for scholarships and paying to keep the cemetery properly maintained over years. So it's a good question. It's why many years ago when we started managing these funds, the town did a good thing in terms of going with an allocation that we suggested that was in that 50-50 range in order to keep up with them. But to answer his question, the CDs have rates of anywhere from 2.5% to 3.5% in some cases. So purchased in a time when we had, higher rates.
Matt, a couple weeks ago, I had sent an email to you about the targeted projections and groupings of the trust funds that we had. Maybe we should be a little more conservative or not. Can you explain that a little bit to the board?
Yeah, sure. So Peg's question was based on the fact that I think you maybe had it was a personal bias, which I see all the time, where folks are a little concerned about, or very much concerned about the markets, and are we going to see a surge in the corona cases, and then the market's taking another dive like they did in March. And you asked me, should we take should we change some things in the portfolio? I think lower the allocation to equities. And what I said was I think it's very important to stay with the allocation that is needed for these funds to have a return over the long term that's going to keep these funds in perpetuity. Because that's the main goal here, is to make sure that these funds stick around for forever, for those scholarship kids out there that need the money 20 or 30 years from now. And when we started managing these funds, the combined market value of these two trusts was, I think, around $1 million. And that wasn't too long ago. And it's really, these trusts have benefited from being in that 50-50 allocation and had very good returns over the last 15 years in order to double what the town has, to work with.
Yep, thanks.
It wasn't just Peg, just so you know.
What's it?
Peg and I were both like, we were, it's a
I was just
hard
wondering I was just wondering if we had a policy with regard to how much of the income we extract from each of those funds for scholarship and other purposes, and how much we leave in.
It's written. I don't think there's a written policy, but
should we consider having one?
I think so, and I know Matt would be a really good resource for that. We've talked a little bit about policies and other investment-related types of things, but what we've done in the past is use the interest that was, or the gains from the prior fiscal year would be what the amount that you could use for, like, the George Kempner scholarship. So it's never touched, the principal has never been touched. That's what we've done.
Right.
Historically.
And that's pretty common.
Yep. Would you welcome more input from the town in terms of a policy, or would you feel?
Yeah, I think I think the way you go to like a committee, is that correct? Like a scholarship
George
committee?
Kempner has a scholarship committee. I think one or two of you guys are on
I
it,
was on
right?
it this year.
And
think
it's
Jan's
comprised of a bunch of different people, but it's headquartered at the high school. So,
I do have the town investment policy on file.
Okay.
And, it like Peg said, it doesn't have specific, language regarding, how much to take. But I've told Peg, I think, You know, the 4% rule is something we've always thought was, you know, a good number, you know, for trust funds. I would consider getting away from the income, well, unless the original trust had language that says you could only take income. If that's the case, then we can't, you know, that's just the language in the original trust, and that's the way it is. But I think, you know, a 4% rule could be used as well. It's just up to, it depends on that original trust document, really, and how that
So
was.
we need to do some research. on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anybody else got any questions?
It gets shorter and shorter each time you're here, Matt.
Good, I hope that's a
I guess you're off the hook.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, you're up next, Peg. Fiscal year-end review, equipment financing.
Okay, so for this, I have allergies, by the way, just if you hear scratching, that's what's going on. For fiscal year-end review, I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about 19 or 20. So what I did was I sent you all 2020 summaries for the funds that we do during the budget cycle. There's summaries and also detailed reports for each. But what I've also done is just did a recap of fund balance for where we were in each of those accounts, where we were in 18, 19, and where I think we might go for 20, because now we're actually in 2021. So I didn't know if you wanted to spend any time. I'd assumed you didn't want to spend any time on 2019's audit, since you guys had information from me before, plus it was in the town report. So I hope that was a correct assumption. Do you want me to dive right into 2020, or do you guys have any questions about the reports?
Does anybody got any questions? Dive right in.
Okay.
Everyone's quiet.
So for the general fund, our fiscal year 2019, which would be June 30th, 2019, we had $1.3 million, which was about a $65,000 increase from the year prior. If you look at the total revenues and total expenses of just the general fund, we netted what's called a profit because we didn't go over in any of those. So I had projected that our fund balance for just the general fund could be 1.4. At this point, with the reports that you have in front of you, 1.4 for an unrestricted fund balance for June 30th, 2020. Then under the revenues for the general fund, let's see, overall, we were under budget by $195,000. We also had operating accounts within the general fund that went over the revenue targeted amounts. The select board went over by almost $10,000, and that was due to we had dividends from MMA, that we had a refund from the workers' comp audit. We also get reimbursements from the state for our fuel tax use and our water department. Another one that was significant that went over revenue-wise is the finance department. That was over by $113,000. We got more under our revenue sharing. We got $56,000 more than we had budgeted for revenue sharing. We got $25,000 more for auto excise, and we also got interest income in the amount of $10 grand. Development permits were up by $7,800, and some of the others were pretty minor. Let's see. Some of the operating accounts that did not meet their budget were EMS. That had a revenue shortfall of about $31,000. This was actually a lot better than prior years. They collected 95% of what they had budgeted. I think the year before it was like 82. I don't know if you remember talking about EMS, but they've actually put a lot of work into trying to collect more, and I think that we might see that in the upcoming months. Police, their shortfall was due to timing of the SRO payment that always goes out at the beginning of July. Shellfish was because the license schedule was changed a little bit this year. GA, we should get another quarterly payment some point in the month. It's a timing issue. Planning, I don't know if you guys, planning has to do with the plumbing and the CEO, and we have a shared service agreement with Dan Riscotta. And so there was a few months that we didn't receive revenue from them because of leave of absence of one of our employees. And that's basically that, the revenues, as far as revenues goes for the general fund. As far as expenses in the general fund, that were, well, actually, overall, we were under by $297,000. And then within there, some of the operating accounts that were over budget was the select board, which encompasses IT services, our website implementation. We had $6,000 that we had to spend on legal fees for that civil case. That sort of thing. That was really the big driver for that. Under the town management line item, truck rental for the flag installs. And the reason I'm bringing these up because I think it kind of would help when we come into the next budget cycle, like dealing with the flags, putting them up and down. That kind of fell through the cracks a little bit. So that's why Julie absorbed it, and that's really was the thing that made it go over. Our municipal building, we had a lot of stuff going on for the building this past fiscal year, just from extra cleaning supplies, heating oil, phone, internet, let's see, door maintenance, and we had some updates to the HVAC. Some of that went to the capital, some of it was operating. Friendship Street School, just the heating oil alone was $2,000 over the budget. That's what I had on the general fund. Did you guys have any questions?
So, but we're still on the black thing.
Yeah.
From 2020.
Yeah, for the general fund itself.
Saved, because you said we could potentially have a shortfall
Well,
in 2020.
because we took action early.
Right, no, I'm just saying
Yes.
this.
I mean, we did. I mean,
Yeah.
that was, we put in the spending freeze, we cut back, and, line items went over, but we're much better than what it looked like in March.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm just trying to emphasize that you took action early, so now.
No, I know. It's because it's hard when we were faced with something unprecedented.
And I did the same review for the capital account and the transfer stations. Did you want me to go through that, or is it too much or too little?
I think the transfer station next would be
Transfer
good.
station next? Yeah. I would like to talk just a smidge about the capital account.
Oh, yeah, no.
Let me do transfer station
Do whichever
next?
one you want.
It doesn't matter to me. There's just, I think capital is in the next in order.
Okay.
The capital account was so interesting this year because we got over $215,000 that was over the budget due to grants, the interest income that we got in donations, and I just thought that was just monumental. The fire department alone got $70,000 that went into the capital program. So we did spend a lot last year overall. I know you all know that we bought a lot of equipment for the Public Works Department specifically, but the revenues that came in, I just was astounded when I was actually doing the math real quick. That it was just nice to see.
Thank you, Max.
Yes, Max. So I could go through line by line, or if there's any particular department you're interested in for capital, you could just let me know and I can give you the details if they're not there. One of the things within the fire department, which was exciting to see, was the billing revenue, the fire services billing. So that alone brought in 18 grand.
I was gonna say, is that
just kicked
for
out. That's what I
accidents
said.
and
I
stuff
want to
like
see
that?
if there's a car accident,
Yep.
they obtain all the information about the claim and submit it, and we get a check.
awesome?
And so this is the first time we were actually seeing it for a full fiscal year. So that's pretty exciting.
And that's a direct result of the plan they put in place to begin collecting those revenues.
Yep, there was a snag and some delays at first, but I think it was within the company itself. They were a small, mid-Maine company, and then they changed hands. As soon as we signed up, they changed hands. And so their IT person became their CEO, And, I think it was, he needed some time to get things going, but it's been so far so good. It's just nice that they have decent grandchildren now, so that was, thanks to Max, there was all kinds of grant activity. Let's see, the ASK program, we got 2,000 for just general public use. The Island Institute, we got 2,000 for street lights. The Spark grant, we got 2,000 for also street lights. We also had some insurance claims, which when there's insurance, an accident or some damage to property, historically, if we put a claim through, we pay the bill out of the capital account, and it goes back into the capital account minus the deductible. So there was a few accidents in multiple departments this fiscal year, so that's also involved in the capital account. The door for the salt shed at the Public Works garage, the old mechanics came down during that one of the storms that we had, so that's in the works actually, so getting that repaired. There was also a couple of car accidents in different departments. Let's see, the Marine Park, we got 17,000 for the Dutch Neck Marine Park through that shore grant. It's noteworthy. We also got 18,000, it's not really a grant, but the program for the police department's training program, the basic law enforcement training program. If an officer comes or goes and the municipality has paid for their training, they could be reimbursed for it when the officer moves somewhere else. So that's what happened with us this year when we lost Chase to Orno. We ended up being able to recoup 18,000 in for the training costs. The Campbell Living Trust donated $21,462 each to EMS, fire, and the police departments. And then the last thing that's pretty incredible in itself. The Shellfish also got 22,000 from the Potomac River Watershed Management Grant. So, that's a lot going on.
Max has outdone me this year, that's it.
It's a lot going
But
on.
Max also had the Volvo grant, is that what that was?
Yeah, that'll be in 2021.
Oh, that'll be 2021?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I just need one picture from John Daigle, and then we can get our check for that.
Yeah, so you gotta shoot for like $212,000 or more.
Yeah, no.
So then on the expenses side of the capital account, we were way over budget by $187,000, but luckily net in the end, we were netted out a profit of $27,567, and it was because of all of that revenue that had come in. So the capital account is set up differently than our general fund accounts in our accounting system. Do you guys remember seeing that really beautiful table spreadsheet that Julie made ginormous? Because each individual account has its own world that moves on and on. Trio, it doesn't work that way. I gave you a fund balance because you have a total and then a total. It doesn't have that history. I don't know if it doesn't, well, that's another story. But anyway, I just wanted to explain to you that the capital account goes along with the table. And so when we get into more of the budget world, we'll be able to see the ending balances for each of those individual line items, but I can't do that in trying to use Trio. So anyway, back to the capital expenses. We had major renovations in the police department. They got new interior flooring, patrol cubicles, paint. They updated their IT and phone. Outside the building, there were exterior LED lights on a couple of the doors. There's a bay window that's been purchased for the fire station. There was exterior trim work, painting outside, new weather stripping installed, door repairs, boiler repairs, floor repairs for the drains in the EMS and fire station bays. EMS purchased 2 stretchers. The fire department got a lot of the SCBA's, equipment for their ladder truck and protective coats, and that grant money was used for that as well. Police purchased a new cruiser and ammunition. Public Works purchased 4 trucks and also received a credit for the use. This was something that had come up a few times by Craig Lewis during budget cycle, that if the public work employees work at the transfer station, the equipment itself, I don't know if it was being allocated or properly accounted for. So Johnny and I had talked about that, because we use the state reimbursement rate. So if you were to hire a DOT with a certain tractor with certain attachments at a certain rate, those hours are billable. So that's what the credit is if you look at your reports. There's been a lot of work by the Public Works Department at the transfer station to work on their landfill closure. And it's funny, you might, if you see the trend of expenses, that obviously the transfer station payroll has gone up, because a lot of it is because of the work that's being done by the Public Works employees, but the Public Works payroll is down. And I think it's just because Johnny's just trying to manage the projects the best he can, and he's using them at the transfer station. Anyway, it all kind of connects. So the landfill,
Big, when they do that, you are billing for the transfer
they-
station for that labor, right?
yes, but
Okay.
that's an automatic thing through
Okay.
payroll. This piece, the credit is for the equipment itself.
Yep.
So,
Got it.
yeah,
Thank you.
I just think it was missing in
That would be-
prior years.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, that would be part of closing the,
Yes,
Yes.
closure.
the land-
so that's part of that money out of the transfer station.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Fund.
Yep, exactly right, yep.
Yep. See, we're all learning a lot. Let's see, and then we also had the improvements to the marine park. That's basically what I had in a nutshell on the capital account. Do you have any questions on that?
Does anybody get the questions? No? Say no.
Okay, and then the last one I had was the transfer station. Overall budgeted revenues were over by 6,400. Budgeted revenue was 515,000, and actual was 522. We deferred some waste hauler licenses due to the COVID, but also due to common sense in a way. We have waste hauler licenses that the season for renewing would be like in June. So some would come in June, and some would come in July. So there was a lot of change actually to the transfer station to be more on board with what we're actually spending. I think we were undercharging for a pretty long time. If you look back into some of the histories of what we were spending at the transfer station. One of the things our audit did this year, our auditor, she gave us a 10-year look back at the transfer station, also looked at the reserves, and Julie and John worked pretty hard on trying to make things more appropriate, appropriately billing them for the costs that we're actually spending. So, but anyway, back to this year, we took in more money because there was a lot more activity at the transfer station, but we also had to spend it because there's a lot more activity at the transfer station. I think we're going to be getting there, but we're going to be it'll be a loss. Like as far as fund balance goes, it'll be a negative again.
And that's something that when the budget comes up, we have to really talk to John about, because I think the rate increases there that we necessitated from the landfill closure, and how we dispose of things is actually was very eye-opening and good. And I think the transfer station committee will have to seriously look at, keep going. I know we have the next phase planned after the closure for the composting and all of those things, but it's been an unfortunate trend at the transfer station that our expenditures are rising in our income.
And all three towns are sharing in that.
Well, that is what I believe the auditor, and this has always come up, is the funding of the scales. That was always the question, is what was the funding of the scales? And what the auditor and what we asked the auditor to do was do that look back. And the money is there, it was all charged appropriately, but it was left in fund balance and not put back into the capital.
landfill
So,
reserve, yeah.
but aside from that, the other issue is that we're not hitting our targets that we're budgeting for the transfer station as far as expenditures and income. So we really have to take a serious look at that, because that's been the trend. And, Peg keeps a good eye on that, and we just have to be more mindful when we're budgeting this year. There's not fund balance to cover it, but that's not how we want to operate.
Are we moving more trash than we did last year?
Oh, definitely. With the
Yeah.
COVID, people were
Cleaning their
out.
yards.
cleaning their yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3,100 ton this year, and last year was 2,700. And that was just a quick and dirty, okay, you know, like that's just, it was just a quick.
And if it's not CDD or other special waste, it goes into the hopper and it's coming
Just
out of
all
our
the way.
pockets. Yeah,
Right.
we're paying for that.
Yeah, we're paying $450 a trip
Right.
just to move the truck.
And then you're
And
paying the tip fees.
70, right, about $72 a ton.
Yeah.
So, good thing though, this year, as part of expenditures, is that, that was the tonnage, and then tire disposal, we took out 38 tons of scrap tire, and 1,239 individual tires. I just don't know.
What about recycling?
What, recycling the tires?
No, the recycling
I don't know
numbers.
those numbers. I should.
I boosted those numbers.
Yes,
I
you
only
did.
have the spending.
I don't know
Big
what the number
time.
is, but I know it's a
I have
lot.
the
Yeah.
revenue and the expenses, I don't have that.
I know it's a lot.
Yeah, so, but we did save a lot of money just because of what all Johnny's doing with the guys, so. That's all I have.
Does anybody get any questions? No? I guess you're off the hook.
Well, we just have to keep her around for the Toy Story,
Oh, yeah, no problem.
if you don't mind.
Okay.
It's further down under new
Sure.
business. It's quick,
Okay.
if everybody's
going
quick
around.
with their comments.
Oh, well, no, did you want to talk about debt service or any of that? Well,
Sure, we can do that. Do you guys want to do that now?
Sure.
We have, and I started a sheet and then I left it in my office, but that's okay. We've gone over the debt, and do you have the,
it's not the latest and greatest, it's my old one, but
oh,
I'll
okay.
share.
But it's around $1.2 million we have of outstanding debt. And we'd like to refinance that, and I'm gonna tell you
Yours is better.
couple of things, that's okay, a couple of things that I've learned, just looking at this is, it is worth it definitely to refinance, I would say the fire truck, the grader, the excavator, and we can't refinance any portion of the garage because it's from Maine Municipal Bond Bank. So anything we've borrowed in the past from Maine Municipal Bond Bank is not eligible for refinancing. That's something that the bond bank does. We can't control that. So we really should look at the equipment purchases and that refinancing it at some point. And the bond bank sounds great. Their application is due August 4th. Which we can submit for. The question then becomes, what else do we include in that? And I think that's a very large conversation that we need to have, and I think we need to include the budget committee in that. Because we are looking at several things in our future. We're looking at, the architect that was going through our building here with recommendations, they still have not come back because of COVID, obviously. That their recommendations are still out there. And I know that a community center, we've spoken about that numerous times. We are at a historically low borrowing point in our time. How we go about that borrowing, though, becomes the question. Maine Municipal, like I said, their application is due the 4th. We can put what we think we will need in that application and submit it. We can take that out. We can even withdraw the application.
Are we allowed to amend it?
Yes. But we also have the option to go out on our own, and a lot of towns do. A lot of towns have done that. I spoke actually today with Northeast Municipal Advisors. They were actually here one time at a meeting many years ago, talking about going out and getting our own bond rating and selling outside of the municipal bond bank, which was interesting. There are differences, and I thought there are differences, enough differences that I think that the select board and the budget committee would benefit from a joint meeting to have this discussion. And I actually invited the gentleman on August 11th because no time like the present to get educated on this and try to make some decisions. Anytime we go out for this type of funding, if we want to now borrow for our projects that are coming in a year or two, we'll definitely need to have some idea of what we're spending, and it has to be timely. We can't just borrow money and then save it because we think we're going to need it. It has to have a purpose, and it has to have some type of a time frame, because we don't want to break arbitrage rules or do anything we shouldn't do. But I think we have a very unique opportunity coming up in November for our community, in that we are going to have the election spawned almost 1,000 absentee ballot requests and almost an equal amount of people coming in to vote. I have a feeling, and it's just an inkling, I don't know why I have this feeling, that November is going to be an exciting election. And I think the turnout will be huge. So I think if there's questions we have for our public, like, and one of those questions is the community recreation center. Should we fund it? What should that funding look like? What should we include? I think we have an amazing opportunity to gauge the pulse of our community like we've never had before. And I'm not saying we're going to print ballots and spend $2,000 to print ballots, because I think what we'll do is print our own ballots up and use the old time ballot box for this. But I think it's really important, and I think if we're going to go out, we need to have a town meeting for bonding, and the easiest way to do that and to get the most input, which I think is what we would like, is to do that at the same time as the November election. But I think before we get there, we need to educate ourselves and educate the public on what our options are. And whether we sell at the fall sale or at the next spring sale, the thought process at the moment, at least from everybody I talk to, is it won't be that significant of an increase from now till then. The bond market may be better. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows. It's just what, like Matt said, you know, you have an idea of what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. But I do think we have to get educated on this. And I think the budget committee, being an integral part of how we proceed, should be invited. So my original thought tonight was, let's put in the application. Let's have a budget committee meeting next week. And then after talking to Lee, our bond counsel, who I just have to say, Lee Bragg is such a wonderful gentleman. I don't know how often any of you have worked with him, but he's phenomenal. I do think that the differences that he explained to me between the bond bank and potentially going out on our own, we could save considerable amount of money going that way. I also, when I spoke to Dick from Northeast Municipal Advisors, he took a quick look at our financials, and actually I was so proud, because he said we've come so far from the last time he visited us. And I just thought that spoke volumes, and I was extremely proud of the staff, and I'm very proud of Peg and all the decisions that have been made, and even prior to Peg and I coming in, of really being fiscally responsible, and that's actually quite a credit to a majority of you sitting here and the decisions that you made. So I applaud those decisions, and our budget committees for being so fiscally responsible. So that's where I'm at with the refinancing. We definitely want to refinance our existing debt, because you're going to go from anywhere from 4 to down to, under 2. And then whatever we do for any new bond issuance will be a considerable savings. The Maine Municipal Bond Bank, and one of the things Peg and I talked about today about the Public Works garages, I wanted to throw that in there because it's a variable rate, and it's anywhere, I think, from 1.5% to up to 5%. So
two and up.
Yeah, so we were a little unhappy that we couldn't refinance that, but that's up
We only
to
owe what?
200,000 on it.
It's almost over.
It's almost over.
That's what I thought, it was almost
I
done.
can't remember now.
Right, but at
It's
some
been 2
point,
years.
and what I was assured of, and this was something I wasn't sure in the main bond law, was we can front load. So like, I don't want to pay, if we're going to refinance, I don't want to take anything that we might have, for instance, the ladder truck, and pay on that for 20 years. I want to stick to our original schedule. It's just our interest rate will go down. So we can front load based on useful life, all of that.
So can we stagger the maturities of bonds?
You can't stagger the maturity of bonds. So the maturity will be a 20-year bond. If you're going to
Okay.
do construction, you want to go 20 years. But what you can do is structure those payments at a much lower interest rate. So you just look at, if we already know, and we have that big, beautiful debt spreadsheet we did during budget time, if we already know we're committed to paying this, it's going to be less money because we're going to save so much on interest. Just structure it, and we can do this if we have our own sale, is we can still pay off the truck in this many years. And we kind of control when we get to do the sale then. It's not you're going to sell this date, you're going to pay on this date and this date. We control our destiny a little more, and I like that idea of controlling our destiny. But I also like the idea of really structuring that debt so that it's following what our wishes are, you know, and it's just how we structure that when we pay down. So we're going to pay more upfront than we are at the end, which I think is what we planned on doing when we did that whole entire spreadsheet. And I think that conforms with the wishes of the Budget Committee and the Select Board. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you don't mind. I took it upon myself to invite this gentleman down to have a conversation with both boards. So I'd like to have maybe a 5 o'clock start at the August 11th meeting, just to have the Budget Committee come in. And that 5 o'clock might be too early for those individuals, but maybe we can start our regular meeting at 5 and then go into Budget Committee at 6. So we can work with that. But I'm excited that we have a golden opportunity to really get the pulse of the town.
So do we need a motion to have her apply for it because it's due August 4th? Would that be,
It would be,
would it be the best way to do it?
yeah.
Does somebody want to make that motion?
I move that we authorize Julie to apply for bonding and as she deems required in her discretion.
Is there a second?
Second.
I can model things and run it by everybody. And like I said, there's no harm if we pull out. But if we don't, then we're in.
We don't want
We're
the
safe.
And we can still pull out, and we can still put that off, because the sale would occur before the election. So we just, even if we just refinance that piece, and it gives us time to really look at this. And I even called today to the bond bank because I was concerned. I'm glad Peg's still here. We do not know where the state revenues are going. If you read the newspaper yesterday, we're at a 625 million in revenue. So I don't know, and we still have no guidance on where our revenue sharing is going to end up. I watched avidly last night every piece of information that I could find on the HEAL grant that is now down in Washington before all of our federal government to hash out for the next few weeks. There is that I could find, no mention of aid to municipalities.
There is none. I mean, that's what the newspapers are saying too.
Which is very disturbing because I think that tax relief at a local level for our residents would be significant. I'm very proud of the fact that we went back and looked and took significant steps. And my hope is that what we've learned from this is don't depend on revenue sharing. Let's wean ourselves off of it. And then when we get it, it's just cream on top of the milk. And we scoop that off and we put that in our capital fund. So I'm, without those revenue numbers, I thought I would ask the bond bank, hey, because you don't know if you're going to need TANs, and we're not the only town that might be thinking this, is what happens if there's no revenue sharing? What happens if there's a second wave? And this is the stuff that keeps me up at night that I worry about, is then can they push that date back? Because if we don't know what's going on with revenue sharing, other towns are going to probably be asking too. And they said in their 40-year history, these have always been the dates. So I don't think their dates are their dates. So August 4th is the deadline for the application. So that's why we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? 5-0. Cool. Shall we move on? Adjustments to the agenda?
You just have the Board of Assessors.
What about, okay. There, so make that 11.7.
Sure.
Somebody want to make a motion to add Board of Assessors?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Could we do one more adjustment?
Absolutely. What would you like?
Katie and I had a really good talk this morning with Larry Wellman. He applied to the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
And we requested the board take up his appointment to the Conservation Commission tonight. And make that 11.8. That's okay. And I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on it? The only thing I could say is he's a new applicant, so shouldn't he be,
He did apply, we've done the discussion.
oh, you have? you
Yeah,
have?
we met with them for.
Oh, okay,
gosh,
nope, I
an
didn't
hour
realize
this
that.
morning.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, we did.
We need to get new people too, to do the interviews.
Yep, should we do that?
That was in my town manager's report,
Okay,
to
so
remind
do we
you.
do that now, or would you
can do
wait
that.
until the next meeting? Would you like to do that this meeting or the next meeting?
The Conservation Commission?
No, appoint new people to do their
Oh.
interviews.
Oh, let's do that tonight.
Okay, so I guess we'll make that 11.9. Actually, we gotta go back to 11.8, which we never had a vote on, so.
Bob made the
Yeah, I
motion.
made the motion,
Yeah,
seconded.
And Katie seconded it. Is there any other discussions on 11.8, adding it? Hearing none, all those in favor? Now we'll go to 11.9 about
New interviews.
new interview people. Somebody want to make a nomination or jump in and volunteer? Jan? And Jan, that'll be easy.
The Colonel and Jan.
This
The jam.
Jan Griesenbach
team.
and Jan Menzie have asked, said they will volunteer to do the interviews. Is there anybody else interested in it?
Katie?
Seeing none? You want to vote on it? Guess we'll have a vote. All those in favor of those two? Sweet. Guess we get that fixed.
Okay. I forgot
I guess
that on
we
the
should-
agenda too.
All right,
Mary.
now, let's see. Actually, I did that out of turn, didn't I?
You did, but
I
that's
did.
okay.
That's
We're gonna,
all right.
you're the
This-
new guy, it's
this-
okay.
Yeah, that's right. This is my show. All right, citizens' comments. Have you got any, Max?
Not at this time.
Shall we wait a few seconds?
Ruben did say a while ago that he wants to point out that I am awesome. Trying to steal my thunder.
It's my first day on the job. I gotta try something.
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay.
We love you,
Well,
Max.
Thank you, Katie.
Seems you like to talk. I guess it's your turn too.
No, it's select board.
Oh, sorry. Is select board comments?
Sans, I like to
Katie?
talk.
Katie, have you got anything good?
Yes.
That's-
Julie, how many voters voted in the last election? Do you know?
Oh geez, I knew somebody was gonna ask me that.
13,
1480, yeah, hold on.
It was like just short of 1,400, I know that.
Mhm.
Oh, 14.
I want the actual count.
I don't have that with me, Katie, I'm sorry, but it was a lot.
So we'll call it 1,400.
1584.
1,584?
Wait, I could be wrong. Wait, I'm just.
I thought it was over 1,500.
Yeah, 1584.
1584.
And you said there was about 1,000 absentee ballots
Mhm.
brought in.
1174.
1174.
1,170.
And one hand count for Jan.
And how many walk-ins?
Sorry, that's the truth.
There wasn't 1,174 absentees, I know that, we didn't send out that many, and I know how many, we sent out almost 1,000, but I think we got back 960 something. Katie, I don't wanna give you numbers, cause they're not gonna be right, so I can provide those with you later.
I feel it was like, yeah, I feel like when we counted absentees, it was about
But I don't know how many
680
absentees.
or so, and then the next day, we still had to count absentee ballots, and that with people who voted in person, that was about, I think, 700 or 800 people.
1584, right?
So,
Got the total.
Okay.
All right, I might have misspoke, sorry.
the vault's open, I could probably.
So about how many registered voters are there in Waldeboro?
Katie, I don't have those, I can't,
Okay.
it's not in my brain.
Okay,
3,000 something.
3,500 maybe?
3,000 something, yeah.
Like I said, I don't wanna quote numbers that I'm not sure of. Max can go get them for you.
We're gonna go get it.
I'm gonna say like 3,096 registered voters and
I don't know, I just.
How many?
3,096.
3,096?
That's what I remember.
3,000 something.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is, I'd like to make a plea with the presidential election coming up in November. I'd like to make a plea to the public now to please get out and vote. It's gonna be, an exciting election, like Julie said. But out of, say, 3,000 registered voters, and only, 1,584 got out and voted this last election. That's quite an absentee from the rest of the people. Where are you? You know, why don't you get out and vote? It's your civic duty to do so. I'm just making a plea to get out and vote in November. Thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, something exciting happened this week. Julie and I and Ruben got an email, believe it or not, from Spectrum. And they said they forwarded all the necessary information to have construction move forward with pull permitting and make-ready process for Chapel Hill Road.
Chapel Road, not Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill, Chapel Road.
Chapel Road.
No, she called
You're
it
in the wrong
Chapel
state.
Hill.
Oh. She's in the wrong
She must have gone somewhere to school.
Yeah.
Chapel Road, yeah. So that's good news.
Ah.
There's actually some progress going on
That's
here.
very good
We're-
news.
And Robin's not here. Robin, if you're watching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
and special thanks to Julie and Ruben for helping this process along in a very, very helpful and constructive way. Yeah,
Ruben has been wonderful.
he has been.
Very, very helpful in this, and we also would be remiss if we didn't also acknowledge John Lawrence worked on this for many, many years and put a lot of time and effort into it.
Yes, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah, especially John Lawrence too, yeah. That's all I had.
Okay. Jan?
Colonel.
Colonel,
Nothing to
sorry,
me.
Colonel, I'm gonna start calling you Colonel. You're sitting in my seat, I never had anything to say either, so.
You must be the chair.
Pass.
Jan?
Well, I'm thankful to be here, and I'd just like to thank the people of Waldeboro, the citizens of Waldeboro, and it's nice to be back. I also think it might be fitting just to say a farewell to Clint, who was at least 4 terms on the select board. It may have been more, I could count 4, but I'm not sure, but, you know, that's a lot of years to put into the town, and he's retired from it now, but just a thank you to Clint for all the years that you put in. And welcome aboard, Colonel John.
Thank you. Okay, cool. I don't have nothing, like I said, I usually don't say much.
But when he does.
But when
I
you do,
Look out.
it's like E.F. Hutton.
Look out.
It's like E.F. Hutton. Nobody will
All
remember
right,
what
I
that
guess
is.
we'll move on to the manager's report.
Town manager's report. Well, I have so much to report. Some really good news. We received a very nice dividend check in the amount of $8,791 as a result of our good loss experience and loss prevention program. So we got a little nice windfall. Pasco collect $8,791, which we were excited about. Something fun happened. Our lease with the blueberry fields up at Quarry Hill expired, and we were able to open up 340 acres to blueberry picking this weekend. And that was a huge hit with the public.
It was.
It was a huge hit with the public. Many people didn't know it existed. Many people didn't know you could. I think the last time this was done, Facebook wasn't such a thing. And Facebook's taken off, and people were very thrilled to be able to have that opportunity. In speaking with Coastal Blueberry, the previous leasee, one of their issues with utilizing that blueberry field is there's a lot of boulders, which would have to be removed. And if you looked at our lease, and I went through it with Peg yesterday, over the last 10 years of the lease, we received about $2,000, which was about between $400 and $500 or so every so many years. It wasn't an every year thing. And in looking at that and then seeing what Saturday was like, and people were still there. I took a ride up there today at lunch, and people were still there picking. I don't know that it's worth leasing out. I think the $2,000 we got over the last 10 years, really, I think our public, for $200 a year, it's worth $200 to allow our residents to have a place to pick blueberries. And when I went up there today, there was moms and kids, families, and everybody was behaving and social distancing and doing everything that they needed to do. And I'm not sure we need to really explore another lease option or just allow it to be brush hogged. John said, we can arrange for it to be brush hogged every couple of years to keep it healthy and sustainable. But I think it's a really nice thing to do for our public. And I think that's something that they really enjoyed, passive recreation and a lot of fun. So we can think about that, but I wanted to report on that. Also, the Davis Trust, I met with two members of the Davis Trust, Dave Siebel and our wonderful Ted Moley. And they are assisting a property owner on Noyes Road to apply for a grant from the Natural Resource Conservation Service to fund the replacement of the hanging culverts that are the problem with alewife passage into the pond. And they're going to replace it with a bridge. The grant is not available for municipalities, only for landowners. Therefore, we can't apply for it. And one of the property owners to the sites agreed to apply. But in doing so, we've been told several things. One is the grant is now then considered taxable income to that property owner. And there could be some liability. What the Davis Trust, that is essentially, because you appoint them, an arm of our municipality is, they would like the town to consider using Davis Trust funds to somehow reimburse the landowner for any tax liability they may have, and also to add us as an insured when the construction starts. I did reach out to MMA to check with them. I have not heard yet back, but I imagine there is a way to do this. Other communities have done this with other alewife passages. But this is huge because this is the first time that we would potentially open that up. And I know that has been a huge issue for the select board, making sure that we get alewife passage. I actually invited them to the August 28th meeting because it would be nice to get an update from the Davis Trust personally. I thought you'd enjoy that on August 28th, if that is okay. So those were exciting things. And I also reached out to Maria Granger from the USDA, who gave the Davis Trust this information about the potential pitfalls. So big things are happening with our lives.
Yep. And do you want to update on the Washington one as well?
Oh, yes, and not to steal their thunder for what comes in August, but on 220, as you turn around in Washington proper,
The Washington Village.
The village, there's a little dam there that they're in the process of getting permits to remove. There still is one property owner that is not budging on one of the dams, but that's close, hopefully in the near future, that we can pick that conversation back up. The only other thing we have to do with them is when they come, they're going to give me their updated list of members, because technically we should be appointing the select board, not we, but you, the select board, should be appointing members. And then the last thing I had was a request from the VFW. With the COVID, the VFW has not been able to really have anybody at the VFW, and they had all these great plans they were going to do. And I was asked by their fearless leader, John Blodgett, whether or not we would consider allowing the VFW to have a car wash out front. Some of the volunteers of the fire department have offered to volunteer, not use the fire trucks, but just offered to use our facility to hold a car wash.
Out here?
Out front.
Okay.
It's good Route 1 exposure.
To raise money for
the VFW. I think that is a valuable asset to the town, a community building. It's used for our addiction recovery meetings and things like that.
You have wedding receptions and stuff like that there.
Red Cross.
Red Cross.
And the forums, you had the forums.
We've had the forums there.
Bob?
Can I make a motion to that effect?
Sure.
I move that we allow the VFW to do a car wash out in front to support their efforts.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on it? Have they got a specific date or anything?
No, well, and they'll coordinate that with everybody.
Okay.
And they'll, obviously, John, being a previous member of the fire department, is very aware of the emergency services and everything and how they have to stage.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor? They are set. Cool. And that's it for you?
I'm done.
Okay.
I talk too much.
No, I just said you like to talk. I didn't say you talk too much. I just said you like to talk.
It's a good thing.
At times.
All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on it? Anybody have any changes
I have correspondence.
or correspondence?
I have all kinds of correspondence that I found in my,
Read away.
right, and we already talked about the George Ganthner Fund, and they must have just sent things out, because the thank you notes are coming in. This is a cute one from, these are from students. This is from Ashley Holmes. There's a little spot here where she wrote. She has small writing. Ah, there we go. It says, Dear George Ganthner Scholarship Committee, I'm writing to express my sincere gratitude to you for making the George Ganthner Scholarship possible. I was thrilled to learn of my selection for this honor, and I'm deeply appreciative of your support. I start my second year of nursing school in the fall at the University of Maine, Orono, while I am currently a waitress at Moody's Diner. I plan on becoming a psych tech at Acadia Hospital in Bangor in the fall until I become a CNA next summer. I cannot express my gratitude enough, and I want you to know that your generous support will help me achieve my dreams. Sincerely, Ashley Holmes. And from Paige Bosso. I'm writing to express my sincere gratitude for making the George Ganthner Scholarship available. I was very excited to hear that I was selected to receive this scholarship, and I'm very grateful for your support. I'm starting my first year of college in the fall at the University of Maine at Orono. I cannot express my gratitude enough, and I want you to know that your support will help me with furthering my education. Sincerely, Chloe Basso. This is from Taylor Post. Thank you for selecting me as a recipient of the George G. Genthner Scholarship. Your generosity will help me fulfill my goals at Thomas College. This is from Jane Van Noy, works at the drugstore, I believe. Thank you. I'm deeply thankful for the generosity of all who made the George Genthner Scholarship possible. Through your gift, I am able to continue my education this coming school year. I am proud to attend Grove City College, where I am studying biology health in hopes of becoming a pediatric nurse practitioner. I'm able to return to my studies due to your gift. Thank you for investing in the students and young people of this community. You make their dreams a reality. Thank you again, Jane Van Noy. This is a creative one. This comes from Wyatt Sykes, who has been big in drama at the high school. He's a very creative guy. And so what he did was, this is the class of 2020. This was their invitation to come to graduation. And he X'd it out because they didn't have that graduation. So he says, congratulations to our graduate, Wyatt Robert Sykes. Thank you. And he writes in here, we made history, senior skip day champs, quarantined, wow, what a year. He did it, seniors strong. This year was nothing like we thought our senior year would be. So much still, but looking forward. Thank you so much for the award of funds for me to chase my dreams. I can't wait to get started at UMaine. Wyatt Sykes. Oh, it says, up next, UMaine at Orono, class of 2024. Go Black Bears. Quite a clever kid.
Does anybody else get anything? Nope, hearing none. All those in favor? All right, yes, we'll move on to new business. Appointments of the office of the town manager. I believe we have a list in front of us.
You have a list in front of us. There is one that I would ask you to appoint, and that would be, it would be inappropriate for me to appoint me, but it is listed on here. So if there could be a motion, if you still want me to serve as your
Town clerk.
cheap, free town clerk.
Well, you are on there. You're on the list.
I am, but I really shouldn't appoint myself. The last time we did this, you appointed me, so I'd like you to reappoint me.
Somebody
Believe me, if I could convince Max to take this, and honestly, I would just like to do this from now until September, knowing that on September 1st, I will be appointing Marcus Benner to take my place, because he will be done his stint in Public Works, and then he can take over.
Yep.
I just also want to point out, so I'll just go through mine, and then you can do that if you so desire. There are a lot of deputy town clerks listed here. We call it the Deputy Palooza. And the reason we do that, honestly, is because if I'm not here, one of us is. Max is here 3 days a week. Marcus is now here 4 days a week, 2 hours. Tanya's here. It just gives us a lot of, and Rose, it gives us a lot of options. If somebody needs a birth certificate, marriage license, and things like that.
So I think what I would like to do is possibly just do the town clerk's position.
That's all.
But do you want us to appoint you and then take and?
You don't have to appoint anybody else. I do those appointments. I just need you to appoint me.
To appoint you, okay.
Yeah.
Somebody want to make that motion?
I move that we appoint Julie Kaiser as our town clerk.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay.
And I just want to add, it was the election, although a tremendous amount of work, it was so much fun to work with Max, who did an outstanding job. Tanya, the night of the election, Peg, everybody just pulled together. It was a very proud moment that Marcus, everybody just pulled together, and it was just, everybody had a role, and they just played it so well, and they're amazing humans.
thank you to all the volunteer clerks that we got.
Right, and that's gonna come up further down in the agenda, but we had some excellent election ballot clerks.
Cool. So things went smoothly.
Because we had a lot of knowledge passed on.
Mhm.
And we had some new ballot clerks and, it worked.
Yep, cool. Guess we'll move on. An appointment to the 80 Gray Subcommittee. Ben Vale, Katie and Bob interviewed him, correct? Somebody want to make a motion to appoint him to that committee?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Ben Vale to the 80 Gray Subcommittee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hear none? All those in favor? Election day pay rates.
Well,
What's that?
this is about my amazing ballot clerks. And these are the people who volunteer to come in and help us. And this year was tough. We had a lot of people back in March commit to doing it, and then they changed their mind. I had to get some new ones, and even some of the new ones at the last minute decided to back out. But I had some wonderful help this year. And given the circumstances of the COVID, we pay them $12.
We follow minimum.
We
wage.
follow minimum wage, $12 an hour. And I just think they need a little something more. And just to give you an idea, because I've been clerk, from May to June, we saved over $5,100 in salaries. And then for July and August, we will have saved $6,464 of municipal clerk salary. I would like to give them a bump up to, because of the COVID, because of coming in, I'd like to give them, raise it up to $1,666 if we could. I know it sounds silly, but it gives them $100 for showing up, and I'm sorry, but I think that, they took time out of their day, they sat there, and they were masked and shielded. Occasionally they had to deal with some really smelly spray to clean. And I just think they did a phenomenal job. We have the money. They really did great. I also want to just mention that since it was our first election, Eileen Donlinger came back and was one of our clerks and assisted us just in the morning and in the evening setup. We did phenomenal. Wanda Collmore stayed. Boy, I'll tell you, she stayed the entire day. What a trooper. Everybody else pretty much went out, and I gave them the options. Let's work out. Some people only wanted to do 6 hours. Two of my new ones were going to split a shift 3 and 3, and then they disappeared on me. So it was great. We also had assistance from the office, from Peg, Tanya, because we had to have backups, and they allowed us to. And luckily, Peg and Tanya are of opposite parties, so they could fill in. And both residents of the community. So if we could at least, and I know this is not what was in the budget, but if you could see your way to make that change, I think that would be a nice thing to do for our ballot clerks, at least for this election and the November election, and we can revisit it.
Somebody would like to make that motion?
Just a question, Julie. So this is we'll call it a temporary adjustment, and would go back to normal after COVID-19 is done?
We can discuss what normal will be at the next budget round.
Okay, so
Does that make sense
revisit
to
it
you?
in February, yeah.
I would revisit it at the next budget. It's just really, honestly and truly, they're troopers.
So it would affect the November one, correct? It would add,
Yes.
Okay.
But like I'm saying, we've saved, well over $11,000 in clerk salary. And just alone in this budget, $64.64 is what we will have saved by me not taking a salary.
So I move that we approve an increase to $15.56.
$16.66.
16.16.
16.66.
0.66,
It's gonna make
sorry.
Peg crazy that it's not
Thank you.
even.
$16.
It comes out to like $100 for their 6 hours.
$16.66 reviewable during the budget cycle in February
Yes.
of next year. That's the.
is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Yep, so good.
How many clerks parks did you have, Kelly?
Not counting town people?
10. I had 2 the day we did early absentee counting, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4 that day. And then the following day, we had another 8. So 12 altogether. Well, Wanda was here both days,
Yeah.
as
Yeah. There was some overlap.
there was a little bit of overlap. We had some newer people. Again, every year in March, typically the parties will give us a list, and we've always had the same people, and it was great, but some just were a little nervous about being here. Some wanted to come, and their children said absolutely not to. I mean, they were very, and that was part of it. So we learned a lot of lessons of what worked well and what didn't, but it'll be good.
Okay, so we'll move on. Discuss the toy program future. You was talking about Peg, talking about that? Discussing that?
We can go over it. This is something that Melody handled when Melody was here, the toy drive. It's an annual toy drive that we do. And currently, on June 11th, there was $13,604 in the savings account for the toy program. And people over the years have given money in good faith to cover toys and boots for the children of Waldoboro. And as she will not be here, she wanted to make some recommendations for the money. If we have somebody, her recommendation was leave it in the program if you have somebody to run it. Otherwise, she thought maybe Daryl could administer it through vouchers. Our recommendation, at least my recommendation, would be with the hopefully advent of the community navigator coming, maybe that would be something our community navigator could do. The funds are in the town of Waldoboro, but I'm pretty sure we could find either the community navigator or even potentially there was expressed some interest in the departments, perhaps forming a group amongst themselves of our emergency services to take on the toy program. So I think
Last year, she only spent about $100, and they did receive, I can't remember the amount, because it was in the town report. But I've seen really nice programs through businesses that they have a third party. Like, I can't remember some of the companies, there's one in Scott, but they know the families that are in need rather than families actually directly calling a business or a town. Then you could refer people to that, and so that might be an option too.
right, and we also have, since we've built up such a wonderful relationship with the food pantry, we have a good resource now too, but but I think it would be a nice fit for the community navigator.
The wishes, wishes, something like that.
Okay.
Do you need a motion on this, Afton, or?
I don't think we really know where it's gonna go, do we? In
Well,
reality, so.
If
so I think
if you
it's-
give me some time, I just want to make sure you know it's here, and
I think,
we'll keep it in-house at least for this first year, and like I said, if it's something that perhaps volunteers from the emergency services departments want to do,
then we can act on it.
we can act on it.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
I have just one more comment though, thinking about people might be anticipating it.
I don't have the list, that's the one thing I didn't find, so I'm gonna reach out to her to see how. And I don't know the specifics of it before.
If we need to act and to appoint somebody, then we can do that in a future meeting. Cool. Personnel policy update.
I just wanted to keep this on our radar. We do have to make a couple of changes in the personnel policy, and it was my intent last night to go home and highlight those and share them with Peg this morning, and I got lost knee-deep in municipal bond bank. So what I'd like to do is just put on your radar, we do have to make some changes that reflect changes we've made since COVID. So that'll have to come before you guys again and re-up it. So I just wanted you to know, and I'm gonna say that'll probably be at the August 28th meeting.
6.6, 80 Gray Subcommittee recommendations. Bob and Jan, I guess you're up.
At our last meeting, we came up with 2 recommendations for the board to consider. One is to enter into discussions with Volunteers of America, New England, with a view to concluding a letter of intent for senior housing on 80 Gray property. And the second recommendation is to the select board that a subcommittee of the subcommittee prepare a request for proposal for the parcels that do not hold the school. That would be the ball field and the parcel between the ball field and the school and the building, and possibly the parcel that holds the tennis courts as well. The suggestion is that the RFP be put before Waldoboro voters during the November election. So the subcommittee would come up with an RFP, discuss it, put it in front of the select board for, if they deem it advisable, inclusion on the November ballot for the voters of Waldoboro to vote on. That's it. And the rationale for the second proposal suggestion is that if single-family units, I think that's what they're thinking about. I'm not part of that subcommittee, but I think they were going in that direction. If they were properly done and properly spec'd, they could increase the tax base of the town.
So those are 2 recommendations for different pieces of property.
Yes. Yep.
How do we want to proceed on this? Do we want to just have?
I think they're looking for feedback from the board. The committee's gonna meet, subcommittee will meet on August 4th.
Okay.
And they're looking for some direction from the board about whether this would be a way to go.
What's everybody think? Did you get these are the recommendations that they gave, so.
Their feeling was that the Volunteers of America
Yep.
are not new to this.
Right.
In fact, Max and I visited a senior housing facility in Thomaston, and I know that Jan is familiar with that too. It's a nice facility. They've done this numbers of places in Maine and numbers of places nationwide. They're well capitalized. They know where to get the funding for these things. It's not like reinventing the wheel for Volunteers of America to take on projects like this. And in fact, some of the projects they have in Maine, at least one of them we know about, is a rehab, like they'd be doing to the school.
Yep.
So, yeah, that recommendation I think is
Solid.
Yep. The second one I'm comfortable with because they're gonna put it, at the end of the day, it's gonna go before the voters.
Right.
And let the town decide what they wanna do with those 2 parcels.
So I guess I really want to ask is, does somebody want to make a motion to move forward with these and make these recommendations? That the committee work on these?
I think it's more appropriate for someone else to make the recommendation.
Can I make I'm sorry.
I wasn't there, so I just have a question. I haven't had a chance to watch it, to YouTube it, or whatever. Was it a consensus, or was it a unanimous that both of these recommendations?
It was unanimous that both recommendations be put forward.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
My only caveat to this is that with the RFP on B with the field, I do think it would be good to have some input from the Recreation Committee.
So should that be put towards the Recreation Committee?
Well, I mean, honestly, because, I mean, you're dealing with the ball field, and I know, if you recall, Marcus had some strong opinions about that.
Mhm.
I think you suggested they invite him to the meeting
Correct.
they have on August 4th. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so there is gonna be a member of the Recreation Committee who is gonna attend, and Marcus said he'll try and zoom in if he can. So I think this is more of just seeing if you're open to the idea of doing an RFP, if the Recreation Committee has their concerns with that.
Do we know if there's the ball field, and then there's the parking area.
Yes.
Is that one section? Does the parking area belong to the same piece of land as the ball field, or is that something separate?
I believe that's, if I'm thinking of the same spot you're thinking of, it should be separate. To me, I believe the ball field, if you were to drive there,
Mhm.
it's pretty much where that little bump is.
It
sort
goes
of the
down,
ditch.
yep.
Yeah, that's sort of the line right there. It's between that and where the 80 grade building is. That's one parcel, and then
Okay, that could be an issue, because that's where the people park when they go to the ball games. That parking lot is usually, or that area,
right.
that flat area above the dip there, is usually full.
And I think that's why the RFP is including both fields and tennis courts, just because, why would we want one parcel developed and the other one not?
I think having the recreation,
Yeah, that-
somebody representing the
Yeah.
recreational
It's
committee
Troy Smith, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
to show up there would be very good idea to have him.
Yep.
Well, now
somebody
we
there.
have Ben Vale there as well. For the
Yep.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
I did have a conversation with Troy today, and he is planning on attending, and he's,
Good. Troy's very good at insight and stuff like that, so. All right, do we want to make a motion to go ahead with making these recommendations and have the committee move forward? Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There you go. We was all looking at you.
you making a second?
I can't see beyond.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? There we go. All right. I was head scratching, now I gotta remember what 11.7 was.
Appoint Board of Assessors.
Point Board of Assessors.
We
There
sorry.
already did that.
We are the board, sorry, the chairman of the Board of Assessors.
Yes. Which,
Is that Katie now? Katie, are you presently the chair of the assessors?
Yes.
Yeah,
and who's the vice chair? I can't remember.
I have no idea.
I think it's Bob.
I think
Is it me?
I think it's you.
somebody,
It's not easy being green.
somebody wanna appoint somebody for being the chair of the Board of Assessors?
I nominate Katie.
Sure.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor? So, anybody want to be the vice chair? Somebody want to appoint somebody to be the vice chair?
Bob, you ready? Are you prepared?
I nominate Jan Greaser.
No.
Well, that's a
I
good,
think we ought to
There we
keep
go.
it Colonel.
I think so too.
Just jump
Yeah.
right in. It's
I-
easy.
I
Jump on
nominate
So there's our,
You
I
could-
can't even spell assessor, but
You will.
I gotta be careful what I say, don't I?
Yeah, a little
You're on
bit.
About what I'm
Yeah,
on,
camera.
yeah, this is part of the minutes.
I nominate the Colonel.
okay, so there's, Katie nominates and,
Second.
okay. Is there any discussion or any other nominations? Hearing none? All in favor? There you go.
There you go.
Sweet. 11-8. What was 11-8?
That was Conservation
Conservation
Commission.
Commission, which we already took care of.
No, we didn't.
Larry Walden.
Oh, okay,
Larry
sorry,
Wellman.
that's the next one, sorry. Is there a motion for Larry Wellman to,
I'd like to make a motion to add Larry Wellman Jr. to the Conservation Commission Committee.
is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just want to point out, we talked with him for about an hour this morning.
Yep.
He's young.
He's a talker too.
He's got energy, yeah, and he's very interested. I mean, he's been up in the parking lot, picked up stuff up there, he's cleaned out the quarry. He's very interested. He wants to learn more about what areas of town can be helped with the Conservation Commission, so
Yep.
I think he'd be a great addition to that.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Well, there we go. We've already done the interview committee, which is,
I nominate the Colonel and Jan
I
Minzy.
think, yep. I think we already did that anyways. We went out of turn.
Oh.
You want to redo it?
Whatever, it's your pleasure, Mr. Chair.
Yep, I think we've already done that,
Yeah,
so,
we do.
yep, so we're all set.
We're into
All right,
opioid.
we'll go to old business. Am I going too fast?
Nope.
Okay. All right, what's this,
Opiate,
opiate,
my opiate
yeah,
lawsuit. So.
okay, yes.
Mhm. We are part of a class action suit against Purdue Pharma to claim losses due to opiate addiction. And we never opted out. We stayed in, if you'll recall, about a year ago. So now they're asking for, we have a choice. We can either list our summary of claims, each claim, which can go back years and years and years, which is overwhelming, or we can go with the $8 million recommendation.
Settlement to the town?
Not, well, it's our damages, what we've incurred, which is done by a actuary for all these local governments. I did contact MMA to see what other places were doing, and many other places were using the actuarial versus us going through itemized billing. So I just wanted your authority to submit based on the actuary's basis of what our losses were. And I don't know what will come of this. You know, they've declared bankruptcy, so, but it's not costing us anything to be in this. It's just my time of filling out some paperwork and sending it in. I just needed authorization to proceed from the select board, if you think we should. And I mean, I think we should.
Absolutely.
Obviously, opiate abuse was a huge issue in not just Waldoboro, but the entire state of Maine. And if there's a way to recoup some of the expenses from our EMS calls and our police calls and figure out a way to benefit in some way from taking this action, I think we should pursue it.
Yeah.
So it would be a motion to
Continue this?
continue with the lawsuit and allow me to sign off and send in the claim
Is
form.
there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Hear none? All those in favor? Yep, you're all set. Agendas for the next meeting. We get the discussion for 2021 priorities workshop. Discussion of the,
Do we want to have a workshop for
Yes,
that?
do.
Because we will be having that gentleman down to talk about financing with the budget committee.
Yeah, that was on there as a suggestion before
okay,
all this other stuff came up.
Right, so can we move that around a
Move that
little
to
bit?
28.
Yeah,
okay.
and the future bonding needs we'll still have on the 11th.
We'll put that on there to make sure that's it.
We get information on the, those buildings, we have a couple buildings.
Yeah, I didn't, Stan was gone by the time I
Yeah.
got back to the office, but we need to, now that we are into this fiscal year, new fiscal year, we need to talk about the building up by the One Pie Way.
Industrial park.
Because it is inhabited.
Mhm.
They had said they were going to fix it up. They still haven't. I know Stan had sent a letter, but we're going to have to start those proceedings again before winter. But I meant to ask Stan when I came back. He was not here.
It's another building on Mantown Road that nothing has happened to.
And I know he talked to him about burning it.
Yes.
And they were going to, so I'll refresh Stan's memory
Yeah.
on that.
And that's the one right after,
Kennedy's.
yep,
Mhm.
yep.
That-
And he had agreed to have the fire department do that,
Yeah,
so.
there was something the fire department needed to wait on, waiting for something.
And I know one of the neighbors was trying to buy it too, so that could be in the process too.
Well, I already contacted Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he already contacted Richard and he,
Richard backed out, because Richard had talked to me about possibly buying it.
yeah,
so.
and that might be worth, do you see him?
Not very often anymore.
But it might be worth asking him again. He
Yep.
would bulldoze it. He
Yep.
would, that's
Yep.
what he said, he'd
Yep.
just take it down, because it's
Yep.
dangerous.
And the only other thing I want to make, put out there, I put it out on Facebook, is we do have some openings on some committees, and I did spend a considerable amount of time last week going over everybody's terms and committees. I discovered a whoops that my previous clerk had made. Sandy O'Farrell is a 3-year term. She was actually elected. And her term does not expire until 2022, and yet we had a vacancy for that. So I've called up to, I sent an email to MMA, because technically our 2 top vote getters in the election, and it was for, the ballot said 3 seats, it should have been 2, were Bill Maxwell and John Heller were the top 2. So Sandy technically is still there till 2022. So I'm just gonna make sure that we don't have to appoint that 3rd person. I just wanna get this right, so we spent a lot of time trying to get it right, so I've put everybody down. I wanna announce we have a vacancy, though, that somebody could apply for on the Board of Assessors. We have a vacancy, not Board of Assessors, what am I saying?
Planning board?
Appeals?
Board of Appeals. We have a vacancy on the Planning Board. And we have another 2 vacancies, I believe, on the Conservation Commission.
That's right.
2 more?
Yes. So if you know people, I put it out on Facebook. That's how we got Larry Wellman.
Yep.
You know, we just have to keep putting it out and talking talking to your neighbors. But if there's people out there that are willing to volunteer, they should.
Cool.
Now that we have a committee too, another committee to volunteer and who volunteered to interview people.
Is there anything else anybody wants on the agenda for the 11th?
I mentioned in my memo that the marijuana dispensary and cultivation facility moratorium is expiring on the 25th. It doesn't have to be on the 11th, but I would like it to be on one of the August agendas.
Okay.
You can, because you're allowed to extend it, it just needs to be a majority select board vote.
Should we do that next meeting?
August 12th.
Yes,
Let's just get it
absolutely.
done.
August 11th, you mean?
11th, I'm sorry.
I know.
I gotta tell you, Abden, it's a really late meeting. You run a really late meeting.
You like to talk. That's all I
Well,
can
look,
say.
we had 2 pages. We normally don't have 2 pages.
I don't know, Bob, you were short.
He
No. I sympathize with
he set me up for
Yeah,
this.
she
He set
did.
me up for this.
She did.
He says, I'll fix
And then
him.
she put the knife in.
Yeah. Twist it.
So this is the end of the meeting. I'll do a quick thing, but Ruben was saying how he loves this group. It's an excellent group, including Julie, Peg, and everyone who works at the town office. He's excited to see Upton as the new chair, and he's looking forward to this next year.
Oh, nice.
Good for Ruben.
I guess we gotta move into executive session, but there is none, so somebody wanna make a motion to adjourn?
Second.